Welcome to a Trek Zone Conversation. Matt Miller with you today. Doug Drexler is back in more ways than one. We had a technical problem with the original recording, which was supposed to be at 477, but he's back again with me now, and I really appreciate his time. Today, we are going to be talking about Marc Cushman's books. These Are the Voyages. I've got the original series, Season 1, and also what Larry Nemecek would call the fallow years between the original series and the motion picture. It's a time when Doug Drexler was in his formative years and he was learning what he wanted to do with his life, and these books really epitomise that time in his life. Doug Drexler, right after the opener on today's Trek Zone Conversation.
Beaming around the world for over 450 episodes, now on Facebook Watch, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. This is a Trek Zone Conversation.
Well, Doug, you are back for another chat here on Trek Zone, and the Gremlins attacked our first attempt at recording this
and
show.
Our second one, too.
I know. It's only the second time that the Gremlins have attacked the recordings, and they've gone after you again. So I've had a word with them, and I'm not sure if you can see it in the background there, but she's asleep now.
Oh, yeah. Well, I got the green one over here. He's right over here. He wants to be in on every conversation.
Now, that bird has been with you for a very long time, hasn't he?
Yeah, like 36 years.
That is incredible. I did not know that the birds live that long, to be honest.
Oh, yeah. He could be 60 or 70.
Wow.
He's in my will. He is. He really is.
To receive the house or to be looked after?
He gets everything.
What about Dorothy? What happens to your beautiful wife?
Well, you know.
She has to live with the bird. She gets the birdhouse. He moves into the main part.
Oh, he's laughing. Oh, my God.
That is brilliant. Well, Doug, the whole reason for bringing you on now, Marc Cushman's publisher had sent me through these books for review. Maybe 12 months ago. So we won't mention that part. But a fantastic dive into the production of the original series, looking into each episode, the ratings, the fan response, and covering across all 3 seasons of the original series. What really piqued my interest was when you posted about these books, and you've got the original copies of these. These are the re-releases. That there was the one version here looking at, as Larry Nemecek calls, the fallow years there between the original series and the motion picture. And that
Fallow
was really a time
fallow
for
as
you.
far as Hollywood was concerned, but it wasn't fallow as far as fandom. Fandom was on the move. You know, they were writing fanzines and inventing conventions, and it was very creative period of time for fans.
And an absolutely incredible time as well for this show. Like, it's tough to think of it now with so much Star Trek in the bank, but back then with 79 episodes, 3 seasons of this show that really wasn't setting the world on fire with ratings. It was costing quite a bit of money to make as well. That the fans loved it. And it was this thing that created and sparked inspiration for so many people.
I mean, if you look at the ratings in Cushman's books, the show was doing pretty good. It wasn't doing bad at all. Especially when you consider what not bad at all meant back then. How many people? I mean, now, a show might get 3 million. And, if you got a huge hit, you get like 10 million.
Yeah.
But back then, audiences were way bigger.
It really helped only having 3 TV channels for the whole country, didn't it?
Yeah. The pie has been sliced really thin.
Yeah, and that's something, very interesting for you in current work on the Orville. Fox passes up the show and the show moves to Hulu with a streaming platform. So I guess things have sort of changed.
I mean, really, the story, it wasn't that Fox passed on the show. It's just that it had to do with Seth didn't want the way I understood it was that they couldn't be ready for another season. And he wanted to be able to do shows that were, more than an hour sometimes, and you couldn't do that. A television schedule for network is really restrictive. You've got to have it ready. The way this works out is it's done when Seth is ready for it to be done, and he's just in a really fortunate position. He's been so successful, that he could do that.
It's an incredible ability that Seth has to be able to do that sort of thing and really, I guess, dictate some terms to the network and really sort of how things are moving along now, moving into this streaming game of being flexible. Current iterations of Star Trek are embracing that as well. They're almost, the last couple of episodes of Discovery have returned to lengths of the original series, 50 plus minutes. So there sort of seems to be this return to this idea of content is king, whether that was ever sort of there, I guess, but content is king, and getting people's eyeballs and keeping people's eyeballs is the priority these days.
Yeah, it's a really crazy time. I don't know how do they make money? I mean, there's so many damn things now that you have access to. I mean, just even finding a show it's not. It used to be 3 channels. Click, click, click. It was easy to keep up with. The same thing happened. I used to be a comic book collector from about the early 60s through to like 72. I really collected. I still have them. And comics kind of, there got to be too many titles. I mean, I couldn't keep up with them anymore. It's ridiculous. How many streaming services can you rent? HBO Max, Netflix, Prime, Stars. I mean, it's ridiculous. You can't have them all.
Yeah.
I can't see how it could be as profitable as it used to be. I'd love to know how it works.
You almost need some kind of overarching subscription that gives you access to all these different, shall we call them, channels, and maybe have it available over the air. Could that be some sort of cable service?
Well, I mean, look, Prime has more or less has that, but it doesn't have everything. I mean, if there's something I like on HBO, I could, on my Amazon account, add it for a month, and I could do that, but I can't subscribe to all, Disney Channel,
Yeah, Paramount Plus,
NBC's
coming out with one.
Yeah.
It's just, and that's the question. I mean, how long does this sort of last? And we're sort of going like this, and then eventually it's all just going to crash back in again. Maybe they had it right back in the 60s. 3 channels. That's all we need. Don't give us the options.
Well, honestly, I really enjoyed those days. Of course, one, you could keep track of it, but what was interesting was that there was the fall premiere. All 3 networks premiered all their new shows the same week, like in September.
Yep.
And they would do huge advertising campaigns that were very entertaining with artwork and magazines, and it was like an event. The new cars came in and all the new TV shows, I kind of missed that.
So what were those times like for Doug Drexler? Full of hair, full of promise. The 70s, the 70s, the early 80s, Dick Tracy, Next Generation. How did Doug Drexler become the Doug Drexler that we know today?
How did it happen?
Whose fault is it? I want to know names.
It's nobody's fault but my own. My parents all tried to talk me out of all of it. I mean, my father, when I was a kid, my father told me that if I spent half as much time on my schoolwork as I did on that television show, I'd be okay, And it's funny. I mean, it feels like it was preordained, like it's in my DNA, it's almost as if I didn't have a choice looking back.
It is funny how those sort of life decisions really work out. I mean, me falling into media here was because I was really terrible at human biology and trigonometry. And they went, well, Matt, you need to come up with some other way of making a living because you're not going to be doing it cutting people open for a living. So here
Unless
I
you're
am.
Dexter.
Here I am in media. It's just, it's funny how those sort of life decisions find a way of being made for you without ever sort of you consciously thinking about it.
Yeah, I just never got over the things I loved as a kid. I mean, I think that when people grow up, they tend to have that beaten out of them in a way, the creative urges, I mean, I really believe that everyone can draw. But I think that what happens, I mean, you look at children, they have a natural ability to draw. They have a natural sense of composition. But then when they finally mix with other people and they go to school and people make fun of their drawings and say, oh, you can't draw, that sucks, and it I mean, teachers will do it to you as well. I mean, you have great teachers, but then you also have teachers that will embarrass you, when it comes to your work, your artwork. Oh, look at that. Look at that monkey.
Ahsoka
is that a beagle?
It is a beagle. It is Ahsoka. She is so tired, but she won't settle down. So here, she can sit on my lap and be here for the rest of the show.
She's a lap dog.
Yeah. She's getting too big now, but she still thinks she's a lap dog.
She's cute.
And she's just chilling. I love it. It is brilliant. Well, Doug, I think it's brilliant to be able to have all of that history documented by Marc Cushman. We should bring it back to the reason that we're here, chatting. No, please don't lick the microphone. No, we don't need that. No, don't lick me either. Bringing it back to Marc Cushman's books and documenting, all that time across the original series, the formation of our franchise, the franchise that we love. I call it ours. It's not really ours. It belongs to CBS, but a lot of fans have taken ownership of it and hold it so dear. And I guess putting that all into book form is a fantastic way of preserving that history.
Yeah, I never would have imagined. I mean, honestly, I thought that the best we were going to get, and I thought it was pretty good, was Stephen Poe's, The Making of Star Trek. I mean, that was an epic book. That was an epiphany for me as a kid when I read it, which I read it while the show was still on the air. It was Popeye had spinach. I had that book.
And I guess that might have been part of the reason that you fell into creative works, makeup and visual effects.
Oh yeah,
reading about
definitely. I mean,
Star Trek.
there were other influences. Forrest J. Ackerman, did Famous Monsters of Filmland magazine. That was an influence because he went behind the scenes. You saw people having makeup put on, and there were a few things. There weren't all that many though. I mean, I remember Warren. Remember Creepy, Eerie, and Vampirella, the magazines, the black and white magazines. Warren also published Dick Smith's, in that same format as one of those magazines, his Monster Makeup Handbook, which came out in the '60s, mid '60s. And I mean, that was a book that launched 1,000 careers. I know Rick Baker started with that. Everybody did.
It's something about going behind the scenes, isn't it? On our favourite shows, we see the completed product on the screen, and for people really engaged with that sort of content to go behind the scenes and see the making of, I think is something really special and sort of peels back the curtain a little bit on the magic of television.
Well, I mean, part of it is feeling like a secret, you know something that other people don't know. You're hip to, how films are being made. I mean, listen, when I read The Making of Star Trek, I guess I was, 13 years old, probably. And there wasn't a lot out there on how films are made. I mean, now there's tons and tons of behind the scenes stuff you get with discs, but we didn't have any of that. Just, reading shooting schedules and realizing, oh my God, they don't shoot it in order like you see in the script. You shoot out the whole bridge. That 13 years old, that was like an epiphany for me, So knowing those secrets, those magic, it's the same reason that that I found makeup to be fascinating, because I could fool people with makeup. I was fooled by makeup all the time. I mean, when I saw The Exorcist, and when I realized that Max von Sydow, who played the 86-year-old priest, was really only in his 40s, and I never knew that his whole face was rubber. That's first, you get your mind blown because you're fooled, which is what movies are all about, fooling you. It's magic, and then knowing something that a lot of people don't know. It's the same with Star Trek fans, who they know everything about their favorite show. And then when they introduce somebody to the show, then they can tell them behind the scenes facts and tidbits that makes someone feel like they're special, that they're part of a special club. Everyone likes to belong to something,
I think it's a unique thing with Star Trek as well, that it really becomes quite a big extended family, and everyone knows everyone, and everyone stays in touch. And then the conventions roll around, and seeing the fans and seeing that engagement, and bringing out sounds like that they're stored away, but next generation actors and cast and crew come out to the conventions, and people are still talking about those shows. Doug, I've brought you on the show. I started podcasting in 2013. We've been chatting since then about your work in the 80s and 90s and even the 2000s on Star Trek. It's this thing that continues to play in people's minds. There's only a very few franchises that have stood the test of time. Star Trek's probably one of the longest, if not the longest.
One of the things I find really fascinating is that when Star Trek was on the air, it wasn't, science fiction in general was kind of looked down upon by the mainstream public. They thought it was kid stuff, and the shows that were huge hits, like Bonanza, was a monster hit. It was Americana. People didn't miss it. Gunsmoke with James Arness. That show had 25 seasons.
Wow.
It's winning show on television. Well, I mean, Doctor Who's, different, but when it went off the air, it had been on for 25 years. But and those shows now are utterly forgotten about. You would have no idea that they were like, shows that moved. They were the movers of TV. I mean, massive audiences, and now you hear nothing about them. You don't see them. That's amazing. That's amazing. And how a show that was just, was thought to be like a kiddie space show, which now science fiction and space shows are mass market now. Everyone is into them. But back then it wasn't so, and there weren't that many shows to choose from that were really good. We had the Twilight Zone and the Outer Limits. Those were terrific shows. But otherwise, I mean, look, I never missed Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea and Lost in Space, but they were kiddie shows. The thing was that those shows had fantastic style and some fun characters. The design work on the Irwin Allen shows was, I mean, the Seaview and the Jupiter 2 and the Robot, and that's some awesome design work. But anyway, off the beaten path there.
Well, Doug, it is fantastic to catch up with you and check in and see that everything is going wellish in these times. We should, before I plug the books once more, I do have to ask, what's playing on your monitor behind you?
Oh, Kelly's Heroes.
Oh, lovely.
It's one of my favorite movies. The thing is that I have maybe a half a dozen movies that I played like 1,000 times, and that I can work and have them on. I don't have to pay attention. I know every word already. So it's just kind of like a white noise that makes me feel comfortable because I love them so much. I could do the dialogue for 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. I've watched it 20,000 times, and it's one of those movies. If I'm busy, I'm working hard on something, I can have it on. Don't have to pay attention to it. If I put on something new, I get pulled away.
Yeah.
But this is just like just comfortable, familiar. It's like a meatloaf sandwich.
Absolutely right. Well, Doug, Mark Cushman's These Are the Voyages for the original series, the 3 seasons, and also 1970 to 1975 documenting the animated series and the lead up to the first motion picture. They're available right now. And I encourage people to go out and grab them, either the original copies that you have or the expanded and revised editions, which have been re-released probably about a few months ago, but we won't mention that. But we have finally gotten around to talking about it, which is fantastic, Doug, and I appreciate your time in coming back to the show. And those gremlins, I will be speaking with them and sorting them out because they've got to stop attacking you.
What is it with them? What do they want from us?
Maybe it's me not checking things before we go. But anyway, we won't talk about that. Doug Drexler, thanks so much for your time, my friend, and we will catch you again real soon.
My pleasure.